Greetings and welcome to the Pure Report. I'm your host, Rob Ludeman, and it is time to bring the orange. And we're already having some fun pre-episode here because it is two characters that somehow tricked me into bringing them into studio. No, two gentlemen that I love that we've done this with before. My right, Anthony Nocentino, Senior Principal Field Solution Architect. Like, how many words can we get into a title?
I already have a long name and have to add that after it.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Justin Emerson, welcome back. Two-timer on the audio, Principal FSA.
Wait, two-timer?
Covering, yeah. He's a two-time guest. Even once when you were with E+, when you were with one of our national partners, which was super cool. Gents, welcome in. How's the week been? The week's been fun around a lot of smart people. Geek Council is a fun time. Yeah,
it's been super fun. Learning a lot, sharing a lot of opinions, right?
Yeah, getting a chance to meet a lot of people that we'd only see a few times a year sometimes. So it's really great to get together with a lot of the other folks from other parts of the country and in the world. Actually, we had people from EMEA,
Asia,
and APJ. It was great.
It was. Do you feel like you all get so much more done when you're just in person here too,
for sure.
Right? And you like hanging out. I mean, everybody's really great on the team, but you get a lot done.
Yeah, I think like the team aspect is a big part of it. Obviously, being in person is very valuable, but we're all remote.
Right.
The entire team, around the country and around the planet, and getting us in one spot at one time. It's just a fantastic experience. Just grateful to have those interactions. And when you have a job like ours, that is, I would kind of maybe say it's not quite a job in the sense because we genuinely love what we do, right? So we get to interact with, like-minded and not like-minded folks and share opinions and techniques and all the things that we've learned in the field. So
invariably coming together, you get to learn a lot of stuff from those people. So when you go back to doing what you were doing, you're probably doing it better.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Well, it's a community of sorts, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I look at the people that are on Seth's team and certainly the ones from EMEA and APJ, and right, you guys are a community of technologists who are just thinking out there, right? Interesting stuff. And you're also playing around with stuff too, right? Like let's don't get this wrong. Like, I know you have all these cool demos and you play around with things and make things work, but the whole goal is you're technologists, you want to get that on the table, but then we want to go to our customers or prospects and show them like, here's all the cool stuff that you can do with our technology and ecosystem.
Yeah, that's the amazing thing about my job and hopefully your job too, Justin, is that we have this cool tech. And it does what we say it does.
Right.
So we can skip past like challenges, configurations, and just go after the data problem that we're trying to solve. Yeah. Right. And it's so amazing, and being able to dig in our labs or with our customers and just work through really challenging and cool innovation. Right.
Yeah, you say skip to the part because it all works, but it takes a long time sometimes to convince customers that that's what it is, because they're like, no, I've been burned before by somebody. It's like, who hurt you?
Yeah. I have a whole talk track around DBAs and snapshots.
Exactly.
Well, yeah, but I mean, that was like it still happens, but less frequently now, right? And when I have Chad Kenny on, he sometimes tells me about his more recent customer visits or prospect visits that he's doing. He's actually going and talking to places now that are fed up with their incumbent,
right?
And are saying, okay, we hear these things from our peers in the industry that have adopted you. What do you mean you can pull out the controller and it still works? What do you mean we can go do self-service upgrades and update everything on the fly without taking an outage or planning it out? Like, what do you mean?
What's the catch on the non-disruptive part?
Exactly. What's the catch? Where's the part that where's the measured versus non-measured downtime? And he just tells these stories and he's really astute at it because he can go back in the history, right? He can go back 10, 12, 15 years and talk about some of the early things when we were going through these conversations, but it's happening less frequently, right? There's a lot of good momentum and people are going, okay, I don't have to worry about these mundane things. Yeah. Let's go talk about the interesting things that are happening in AI or data management or data engineering, right?
And one of the best through lines on that is like, when you're talking when Chad was here 15 years ago, right? I would say that, what we were bringing to market didn't do a whole lot, right? But what it did what we said it would do.
Sure.
And that was the thing. That's been the through line the whole time. It's like, there's lots of things that we do now. We have this amazing, portfolio. We have these amazing set of solutions that we can give to customers. But the march on that has been, we're trying to make sure that every time we add something, we're not breaking that original philosophy, which is we're trying to make sure that we release things that do what we say they're going to do. I was been working with a customer for the last year on a bunch of projects, and they actually we sat down at dinner with that person and a different customer, because they wanted to say, hey, can we talk to one of our peers,
peer-to-peer, always,
which
always
is great. And
right?
over dinner it was amazing. But I'm sitting there next to the two tech guys who are sitting across from each other, and he's like, so did it work? And the guy, from the customer that had done all the testing said, yeah, it said this, it did the stuff that they said it would do, didn't do the things that they said it wouldn't do, performed about as fast as they said it would. And I'm like, that's the most ringing endorsement that you could get from a technology person who's, like being practical, right? He wasn't effusive or whatever. He was just like, yeah, it did what they said it would do. So
That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
What about you when you go out? I mean, these things, are you able to experience and talk about the parts that you're most passionate about, right? Which is all around database and data engineering and data operations.
Right.
And it's a relief because you don't have to go in there and set the foundation of, well, our storage does this and theirs does that. Like, you just go in and go, oh, you guys are running SQL Server.
Right.
I'm going to show you some cool things that you can do relative to some of the problems that you're having.
Yeah, I think to build on the points about just doing what it says it does, simply, too.
Always.
Right. And so
Always.
we don't have to
And
mash this
intuitively.
button. We don't have to turn this knob or set this block size or worry about a parity of this thing. We just consume, right? And just go after the problem that you have to go after, and being able to do that. And I love to do this programmatically and being able to do it with the tools that we have in a simple way. And we meet our customers where they are with the tools that they're using, PowerShell, Python, REST, whatever that is.
Whatever it is.
Yeah. It's a fun story. When I first got hired, I wrote all the demos for all the things that I wanted to do as a DBA in PowerShell, right? Because it was what I would pick up and do it for real if I was doing it as a DBA. And in about 3 or 4 months into the job, I got on a customer call, and they were like, we don't use PowerShell. Show me how to do that in the GUI. And I was like,
I'm gonna have to get back to you on that.
I don't know how to do it in the GUI because I'm
Not really sure.
Yeah. But the idea is, luckily the SE on the call cleaned up that mess for me. Then I learned how to do it in the GUI. But the moral of the story is the simplicity of picking up that tool within the first week of me working here to be able to go after the task that I wanted to do. And I was able to do that. And I love that kind of that thread also goes through all of the things that we do as a company, right? Keep it as simple as possible so that it's elegant is really
and meet customers where they are, whatever that is.
Yeah. And whatever they're using, right? And that's the key to API first. I think I trumpet that as much as I can in this, is that the decision was made a long, long time ago, right? To integrate into things people are using and not be closed, because closed creates complexity, closed creates proprietary, closed makes it so you can't interoperate with things. And we're always able to interoperate, which is super exciting. And the fact that you came for a week and you're just, I'm just going to do PowerShell stuff and work with this. And it works. It's great.
Yeah, it was super fun.
Yeah. How was the sales kickoff experience? I don't think I've seen either of you since SKO. Spent a lot of time with you.
Yeah, it was.
Barely saw you.
It was. So it was a really complicated week for me because I had travel on either sides of it. And so actually, I take that back. I was supposed to have travel on both sides of it, but the week before there was the big snowstorm in New York, so I didn't end up over in New York, and so I was like, oh, thank goodness, because I was supposed to be coming back on Friday and then turning around and going back to Orlando on Sunday.
Oh, I remember that.
That would have been exhausting. So I'm glad that ended up happening. But it was a whirlwind. It was our first, obviously, SKO as Everpure.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of people talking about that, and there was a lot of people tripping over their words. But Everpure
Still
Everpure.
happens.
Oh,
It'll take time.
Oh yeah.
It'll take time, and that's all right.
I mean, I have trouble writing. I was going to say I have trouble writing the date on the correct year on a check until 6 months into the year. But who writes checks anymore?
Sorry, checks.
Yeah.
Rarely.
I gotta ask you a question. How did you guys pull it off? Like, we walked into SKO.
Oh yeah.
And everything said Everpure already.
Yeah.
That's crazy. It was like 10 days later.
Yeah, there was a lot of work by a lot of people who were under quite a bit of secrecy.
Yeah.
And amazing, right?
I mean, hats off to y'all. Yeah.
Testament to be able to do it. But I would say it's probably, several hundred people.
Yeah.
Right, involved with the knowledge of that, and people like the brand team who worked on building all that early. Now there were things, I was involved in like the scripting for main stage and things like that, and we had to like put placeholders in for the company name change, and we had to work in like non-branded slide templates and things like that until we made it work.
Yeah,
but
there was something I only realized later was a very clever ruse, which was various teams will buy will bring swag for their
Yes.
team or something like that.
Yes.
So lots of different teams have their own personal swag, and a notice went out where it says, "Hey, we're going to use a single vendor for all of our swag this year. So send us your designs, and then we'll have the shirts there for you." So when the shirts all got made, they all said Everpure, and no one was the wiser. And so we showed up and it's like, "Oh, that's cool."
It was super clever. That was a really clever
Amazing
thing
effort.
that
Yeah.
the marketing programs and the brand team came up with, which was, we don't want to discourage people from showing. I remember the year, however many years ago, when Team Japan showed up in those amazing tracksuits that they like people, right? Remember those things? Right. People come
I
up
love
with
me a
really
tracksuit.
cool,
Team Canada was in the
creative
hockey
ideas.
jerseys.
And Team Canada always does something, hockey or lumberjacky or whatever it is.
Lots of plaid.
Yeah, plaid, a lot of plaid. But yeah, we managed that, which was
well done.
super fun. Did you get some R&R after at least? Did we do some fun vacation? I mean, I know where you went. You always, you always go.
After we
You're
went
Mr.
to the
food
beach,
guy, right?
before we were in Italy earlier,
Yeah,
before
yeah.
SKO.
Okay.
And after SKO was beach.
Okay, so you got a little on the front and the back.
Yeah.
Which was pretty good. What was the best thing you ate in Italy?
Oh, all right. This is a fun story.
Yeah.
Made a little walking tour from downtown Rome to this little town called Trastevere, which is across the river, the kind of west of Rome. And there's a pizza place called Forno, and you walk in, and I'm looking around, and it's a white pizza with provolone cheese, red pepper flake, and a grilled broccoli on top. It was amazing. One of the best things I've ever eaten. So I've been thinking about this thing. I'm going to recreate it at home.
Yeah.
I've been thinking about this thing ever since.
You
It's a
never
good
can
stuff.
though. It's really my friend in Cleveland. It sounds weird, but my friend in Cleveland took me to a place that had amazing pizzas, and the pizza had egg, had egg.
Oh,
that
yeah.
You crack on top of it, and then it cooked up in the wood fire, and then it was
Yeah.
sort of, partially hard boiled or whatever, and it was like a breakfast pizza. It was one of the best things. I can't recreate it. It's hard.
Yeah, and I think
It's really hard to do.
especially like how I like to travel, like on my stomach, basically, right?
Yeah.
And so the memory is also associated with the taste, right? And
Sure.
so that's bringing that home as well, right?
Yeah. What about Japan? You had was that Japan trip before or after? What
That was after SKO.
That was
yeah,
after.
so that was,
a March
very
thing?
very beginning of April, and
Or
we had,
April.
Yeah, we had timed it that way because that's when the sakura, the cherry blossoms, come down, and so for those on listening to the podcast, right, I actually majored in Japanese in college, and so I've been like a big Japan nerd for a long time. But I never taken my wife and son there.
Oh, wow.
I've been for business. I've been on personal things a
thought
long
they
time
had.
ago.
So
No,
that's just your thing.
Yeah.
Because I knew this thing about you
Yeah.
with speaking
Well,
Japanese.
and my so
traveling.
we mostly made it a trip for my son, and we went and did a whole bunch of cool stuff. We went to Super Nintendo World in
Oh, that's
Osaka,
great.
which of course was also for me. But
course.
yeah,
Yes.
but we went and saw the cherry blossoms. It was perfect. We got there, 4 days before they all fell down. So it's one of the things that's so beautiful about it is it's so fleeting.
Yeah.
Like it's just this one moment in time, and while it's there, it's a completely beautiful, and it blows you away, and then it's gone.
And that just,
And that's one of the things that makes it so magical. Is it's like if it was like that all the time, people would get numb to it, which I think is one of the really neat, unique things about
Gotta
it.
be
It's like
special.
the people in New England talking about the trees in the fall,
the
right?
leaf stuff. Sure.
It was really awesome, and then we came back, and I back to work. So.
It is nice to see places that have 4 seasons. As you know, here in California, we have
Yeah.
we have 1 spring and 3 summers
Yeah.
usually. So
We don't have
there's
weather.
not- there's not.
We have traffic, and when there's we don't talk about weather, we talk about traffic.
No, we do. Traffic. Let's see how we do this. I brought you on, and I think it's really interesting because you both focus in what has traditionally been distinct places, right? Anthony, database person, database, usually block kind of things, unless we're talking about rapid restore or backups or whatever. And, you're on the team that focuses on unstructured data and looking at our enterprise file and our block capabilities. And I'll probably title this something around, and I go back like lots of anecdotal history things when we were talking about what to do. It's like, oh, this is like those Reese's commercials, and you can go back on YouTube and pull them up from like the late 70s and early 80s. And it's hey, there's a song going and the girl's walking down the street and she's eating her chocolate. And then for some reason there's a guy, a boy, and he's just crushing peanut butter,
just scarfing peanut butter
right from a jar, which
as one does.
I don't know if that's a thing, but it's suspend disbelief, and they turn the corner and they run into each other, and it's like, you got your chocolate and my peanut butter, and you got your peanut butter and my chocolate. Eat it, tastes great together. So that's where I want to go with this a little bit is is where are we seeing kind of the convergence between block, and where are we seeing it with
Yeah.
file, or even more so, object perhaps, because files kind of was kind of living in both places. Why historically were these separate constructs though? Why did we grow up in the storage world
Yeah.
where they're pretty distinct?
Well, you got to think about where their origins came from,
Okay.
right? So block storage was trying to solve very different problems than file storage, and then later on, object storage was trying to solve some of the similar but different scale problems that file had. I like to remind people that when we talk about file and folders, we're literally talking about a metaphor for the office of the 1980s.
Yeah.
It's a skeuomorphic representation of what somebody would have done sitting at a desk in the 70s.
I'm going to draw one here.
There
just
you go.
For fun.
Yeah, exactly. It's literally the iconography,
really well
and
drawn one,
it's like it's anachronistic in the same way that the save button is a floppy disk, and people are like, "What the hell is that?" nowadays.
But we all used to mess around with it. I mean,
Yeah.
we all
Yeah.
ran some form of
Oh, sure.
Microsoft Windows, and
Yeah.
you spent a lot of your time, bouncing files around and
Exactly.
messing with
But-
file structures.
Right. And the idea behind that was, hey, I want easy ways to separate and manage data, but not have it in such a tightly structured way like it was a database.
Yeah.
And so that's why they've sort of been different. They've had very different purposes and use cases. We were joking that we seem to have very different titles, and yet we get to work with each other a lot, get to be the two obnoxious redheads. And what is so fun is that those two worlds are starting to blend and merge in a really interesting way, which is, do the concepts of structured and unstructured data even matter anymore, or are they?
Or is it just data?
Yeah, exactly. Is
Right.
it just data?
Especially if you fold in just interacting with large language models and chat and agent scenarios, right? It
doesn't care so much,
It literally
right?
doesn't care
Yeah.
because it can understand. It's the context
Right.
that matters. Like, and
Yeah.
going and retrieving some data from a relational database, or going and pulling some data from a document store or an object store to build whatever correlation that is, and it's just going to happen within the agent or within the chatbot that you're working with to go after that thing or that outcome that you're looking for. But that shift is happening like right now. I think we're seeing that in market where customers are starting to do these things. Agentic, it's such a weird word.
I just did a podcast an hour before this where all we did was talk about agentic.
But those agentic interactions
It's
with
agent
data was
with
driving.
ick.
Yeah. So
Ick.
Ick.
ick. Yes,
Gives you
focus
the
on the ick.
But when, I mean, as kind of a blockhead, when did you, was there a moment you scratched your head and, and like, oh, well, that's off there doing, like, that's object guys over doing those things. Did you kind of scratch your head at some point over the last few years and go,
Oh,
this
there's a
this
thing.
stuff is, this
Yeah.
stuff, like, was there a tipping point or a moment when you
So-
realized, oh, things have changed?
Yeah. So when I worked with Microsoft on SQL Server 2022,
Okay.
there's an object integration in SQL Server 2022 where you can take data from a relational database and put it into object in
Okay.
many of the varying file formats, Parquet, CSV, Delta, Butter, right? No, just kidding, Parquet.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Good one.
Or
Another 80s commercial.
right?
Thank
Or
you.
I can pull data from an object store and put it into a database over
Okay.
S3 or object. And I was like, wow, that's a thing. Because now I've just broken down the lines of how data gets in and out of a database. But when I interact with that data, I can still come in the front door using T-SQL through the relational engine and get all the semantics that I expect out of a relational engine. Or I can interact with the data directly that's in the object store that may or may not have been in my database before. So we see customers using this for like archive plays and scale out analytics. When I teach about this concept of data virtualization at conferences, I'll ask the audience, hey, how many of you guys have a database, or how many of y'all have a database with transactions in it from 1997? And literally everyone will
Everyone's
raise
got
their
'em.
hand.
Right.
So I'm like, imagine if you could take the data from maybe 1997 till some other time interval, maybe last couple of years, and stick that somewhere else and leave the important stuff on the hot, expensive tier 1 block and put the old stuff on object, which you're probably going to be doing analytics on anyway. So the access pattern matches what it's stored in. And so you can also access that using other tools too. It don't have to come through the front door of the database engine to get access to the data. It's an object. So really it's blurred the lines about how we're treating data, right? I can interact with the T-SQL front door. I can use DuckDB against the object store directly and do some scale out plays there. it's really, that's why we've been having these conversations.
And that was kind of the when Anthony was explaining this, I forget at what event, maybe it was
I think it was
SE
this
Boot
past
Camp.
Geek or something.
No, I think it was SE Boot
Yeah.
Camp.
Yeah.
We were talking about it, and I had this sort of aha moment where I'm like, oh, wait a minute. One of the things that we've been trying to help customers do is, centralize, create a data hub. If you remember
Sure.
that, we talked about that a lot.
I remember Data Hub.
And,
Yes.
and,
why?
and what this capability allows you to do is to have one canonical copy of the data instead of a million different copies.
Yeah.
But you can have it in different performance buckets. You can have it in simultaneously accessible through different modes, through different types of interfaces, and the enabling technology for that is not just the virtualization part.
Right.
That's the part that helps you connect it into the database, but it's the open data formats and the open table formats that really made that practical and possible. Because it used to be, it's like, well, I've got these 6 different applications, but they all store data differently. And so even if I could have them all talking to the same, volume or the same file system or the same object store, if none of them understood the data as it sat there in situ, like what am I supposed to do with it? And so what this data virtualization allows you to do is it allows you to start taking what used to be data that was only accessible through the front door of the database and starts giving you sort of side channels on how to get to it. And it makes it so that you can start doing things like, well, I have this one copy of data. All these old transactions from 10 years ago are not going to change.
Nope.
I don't need them to be in a format where I can go and make a whole bunch of updates to these rows, but not these other. Like, it's static data, but it needs to be there. That's why it's still sitting in the database. So what if you could say, hey, for all this stuff, I'm going to put this stuff somewhere else. Not only does that allow me to be more efficient in how I use the data storage that I have, but it also then opens up the ability to do other kinds of things on that data without having to make a copy of it and another copy of it and another copy of it. And that gets back to governance, because how many times have, somebody taken, I need to do some work on this, and they export all of the data,
Right.
and then that ends up on a
That's
laptop.
That's never happened.
And then that ends up,
does that?
Yeah, exactly, right? So it's super important as we think about how do we make data more secure, but then also, bringing up the AI and the agentic part is that, you don't want necessarily your AI models to be hammering on the front door of the database,
Right.
using up all of that, CPU time, asking it to run queries when it could go look through the data behind the scenes on its own, sort of in parallel, and not affect your front end applications. And that's been the reason why people have created data marts and data warehouses and so forth, because I need to do analytics on that data without impacting the performance and the reliability of the thing that's actually where I'm storing the first copy of that record, right? Where that first, change gets written to. That has to be where I can always do something. It's super low latency, and I have to be able to do it, with atomicity and ACID transactions and all that kind of stuff. But once it's past that part of its life cycle, that's just the first step on a data pipeline, if you think about it. And so what if that whole data pipeline could all be accessing literally the same copy of data? That's what's so cool.
Is the concept then of data warehouse past?
No,
Is that still
no,
a
no.
thing?
I
Or
think
is that
it's
still going to
the
exist on?
Yeah, when we talk about data warehouse versus OLTP, and this is kind of what Justin was touching on,
Yeah.
is the performance is different. The access patterns are very much so different. The traditional OLTP system is scale up.
Yeah.
Right, I do more stuff faster by getting more stuff done in a time slice. The way that we go after analytics problems or analytics workloads traditionally is scale out.
Yeah.
Right, and so then in the open table format, I can just keep scaling out. Obviously, there's diminishing returns at some point, but I can continue to add compute on top of the files that I want to interact with. And when I showed them that first demo, the first time, I was scanning across, I think it was 12 separate files, maybe 16, and all of those were being read concurrently by a 16-core system, and I was able to drag multiple gigabytes per second out of a FlashBlade to feed a SQL Server query, right? And that was that aha moment that he was just describing. And so that's can drive that access pattern is what drives analytics, and that's also why we see the proliferation of massively that's what we're looking for. I guess focus on analytics in the data space right now with Fabric and Databricks and Snowflake. Like they're leveraging that architecture to solve that scale out problem of analytics.
Yeah, it's opening up new capabilities then for sure around that.
Yeah, and those performance profiles that you're talking about, those access patterns, just happen to align very cleanly to a certain degree to the various personalities of Purity, right? So we talk about what can do really low latency, high transactionality, supporting a database workload, an OLTP workload like that, and that's your Flash Array, your Flash Array XL, your Flash Array X, right? Which have been doing databases for as long as there's been a Flash Array. And then you have the scale out problem. Well, what's the scale out personality of Purity? It's what runs on our FlashBlade family. And so what I joke, I like being able to work with Anthony, and one of the reasons I get to do that is because we now have this continuum of data that spans both.
Yeah.
When historically people would be like, well, this is a workload that's a scale up workload and this is a scale out
They
work.
live in
and
separate places.
And
Never
the answer
shall
is
they touch, right?
it's both, right?
Yeah,
It is a peanut butter cup. There's both flavors in there.
Yeah. It's an exciting time.
Very much so.
Super fun. What have you played around with relative to this? What other things have you demoed or that you've done to work with?
In this specific space?
In this specific space.
There's another access pattern. So imagine you're an architect and maybe you have IoT systems or some other thing that's generating data. Well, you can land the data directly into object and then bring it into the database engine or access it at runtime, which I think is another pattern that I'd like to see people use. Obviously, the export pattern, the archive pattern, the analytics pattern makes a lot of sense. But also, if you have lots of systems, because that's what Object was able to do, is also absorb a lot of data at high velocity and scale, and then be able to access that with the database engine or present it back to your scale out analytics platform is another pattern. I think this concept I want to see be used more. I think it's a very underutilized concept in our customer base and kind of wider in the data industry, kind of blurring these lines here. So I'd love to see, if anyone wants to talk more about it, please hit us up.
Yeah, because we both love talking about it. Like one of the use cases that you had mentioned one time is, and I'm sure this isn't unique to one customer, but how many times have you found a customer that's storing images in a database? Right? Is that where those images belong? No. But if they wrote their application to do it that way 10 years ago and they're not able to change it, you can virtualize that all out on an object store. And now all the images are also just accessible as objects, which means that you could build half a dozen other applications that can then access all of those images or, check receipts or could be medical images or whatever. Like if you built something and you accidentally put, the wrong kind of data in the database, but you're kind of stuck, this data virtualization offers you a way out. And then the really cool thing is that you mentioned going the inverse, right? Writing data into an object store and then bringing it in as a data source, but virtualizing it within your database. That gives you the way to bring other kinds of data into, so let's say, for example, man, I really wish I could run this query using SQL because I want to correlate these things in my database with these other things. And maybe those are data files, maybe they're text documents, maybe they're something that I'm going to process through a large language model to extract certain things from. Well, if you can take that data and you can bring it into the database, now you can query it just like you would data that lived in the database. And so it gives you a new way to, to interrogate that data without having to put it in the database.
Data.
Click the light on.
Yeah.
Shine the spotlight on
I think
the data.
there's a subtle point that I want to call out when you have kind of the architecture that we're talking about. The persona that's doing the development doesn't have to change, right? The tools that they're doing development with, so T-SQL, whatever they're using higher up in their application layers, doesn't have to change, right? This is all plumbing that's exists in enterprise architectures for years. So this idea of being able to blend object and unstructured and IoT but literally not having to increase the complexity in my environment is really kind of the unsung hero of this story, right?
How well would you say this is then understood, right? You're both smart and you're going out talking about this, but we know many customers are reluctant to be cutting edge or to take on new things, or they're scary, or the Carl example of the guy who used to work at the aircraft. I brought up Carl.
Your favorite
like
Carl?
my favorite guy Carl, who had a beard and suspenders.
Wait, how did
and
show us how Carl hurt you?
Yeah,
how did Carl hurt you, Rob?
Carl never wanted to hear anything about
man.
automation or things that would make his job easier. And so I know that's going to be out there where you guys are describing with enthusiasm about how these things work. And I've still got to
geeked out for like 25
we geeked
minutes
out for
on like
25
one
minutes
feature.
on one thing. And I still have to go figure out what a front door for a database looks like. I'm going to design that kind of in my head here because we said front door about 5 times. But but then what's holding folks back? Why wouldn't they just be jumping in going, plus with AI coming, like does that bring it along?
I think there's 3 or 4 things. Like first of all, to answer your first question, I think it's criminally underutilized. I think that it's one of the most exciting things that I think has happened in that space because, when I first came to Pure, now Everpure, we're all talking about analytics. We're talking about, and Anthony likes to complain that everybody is trying to figure out how to recreate the relational database in the analytics space. But we don't have another hour, so we'll move on. And
Part 2.
So what's so like the things that people were trying to do there is solved by this in many ways. Like many of those challenges are solved by this. And so, and you mentioned, right, this is not a bleeding edge new feature, right? This first shipped in SQL 22. It's also available in other databases as well. And so it's not something that is some bleeding edge new feature that you're going to cut your hands on. It's not something that you need to be scared of, but rather it's incredibly exciting. And so your second question, the second part of the question was?
I was going to what's holding people back.
What's
and
holding
I was
people
getting
back.
into,
Yeah.
is there some element of organizations being traditionalists, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we hear that a lot, which is,
I think
this
it's-
is the way we've always done it, so we're going to keep doing that this way.
I think there's an awareness problem, which is one of the reasons we like talking about it, is
That's why
because
you
we're
guys
trying to
are here.
solve it.
That's why you have
But
jobs.
the other thing is that, just like I'm an unstructured guy and he's a structured guy, there are walls that people have built within organizations.
Yes.
And there's people that don't talk to each other and they don't realize that they have more in common than they have that are different, and that there are different ways that they could work together
very
to
good
solve their
insight.
problems better than they do today. And so there's I don't want to say a social or a political or whatever aspect, but it's an opportunity to work better with the people in your organization, which also is just fundamentally a great thing.
It was back when I used to do compute stuff, right? And there was the RISC computing group.
Oh yeah.
And there was the x86 computing group, and they did Linux stuff, and they
And the
did-
mainframe computing group.
and Unix stuff, and then the mainframe. It's like you're all doing computing,
Right.
right? You're all doing computing. You're all processing things,
Right.
And maybe, I don't know, crazy idea. You might be processing things from the same application,
Most likely.
right?
No, but I think to your point, when I was a consultant, like that was my superpower, was to have a meaningful conversation between 2 different groups. And I think that's what we have to do as FSAs or field solution architects, is to have meaningful conversations with the storage teams that provide these services to the data teams. And so that's quite literally the definition of our job, is to have that conversation to expose these kind of capabilities and drive the outcomes that our customers actually need.
For anyone listening, or any, if there are customers out there, what do they need to do? You've already said multiple times, like this technology, at least in SQL world and other places too, has existed. Part of it is this potential structural artificial barrier that we have. But what's another way that you would say for folks to get started? Is it like an easy win? Is there an easy use case that somebody could go off and experience if they weren't doing this bidirectional kind of thing already?
Well, I mean, if you want to get started with it, I have a whole bunch of sample code on my GitHub repository.
Well, that's a good answer.
That's probably
right?
the first place to go.
Yeah.
Where you can.
If you want code, go see Anthony.
Yeah, so go hit the blog. I will put some links, I guess,
for
in here for that.
For sure.
But that's kind of the main idea. Like, get your hands dirty and learn what it can do and see the power. We have it in Test Drive, actually, too.
Awesome.
So if you go to Test Drive, you'll have that same data virtualization experience in there with S3. And I think...
And I think there's some still mysticism or like misunderstanding of object storage, like it's some really complicated thing. And I think that sometimes makes people afraid of it, because it's like, oh, it's not just mounting a drive letter. How do I get to the data?
Yeah, what's one of the S's in S3 stand for?
Yeah, simple.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So
What are buckets?
yeah, So is that what you wear on your head? So the the thing that I want people to understand about object storage is that it was designed to be simpler than file. And there's a very, very, very small little barrier that you have to hop over in order to get into object storage. But once you're there, it's flat, right? And I mean that both literally and figuratively. There are no mountains that you have to climb to get to where you want to get to. And so these tools that Anthony is describing, these capabilities, actually get you up onto that plane for you. They make it so simple. Like there are, even in the case of just something really straightforward like SQL backups or SQL dumps, right? You talked about in 2022, they added this virtualization piece to S3. They also added the ability to back up SQL databases natively into S3. And that is so much easier than doing it to file, because you don't have to deal with a bunch of mounts. You don't have to think about what's the performance to each of those mounts, how many TCP connections is that going to have, like, because it's driven by the application. SQL's not interacting with an operating system to go find a bunch of file shares and map them and deal with Active Directory and stuff. It's just like, no, here's the bucket, go and do stuff to it. And SQL's doing that directly. Yeah. It's bypassing all of those other layers of the stack, which makes it, one, a lot simpler, two, in most cases, a lot more performant as well. And it's, I think, a really clear example of, man, if only these folks would talk to each other, they'd realize what cool stuff they could do together.
Yeah, Venus and Mars.
Yeah, the concurrency model on S3 is dramatically simpler than SMB. So if you need to make something go fast, it's way easier to do it on object with kind of the techniques that Justin was talking about. And also back to the kind of the data movement thing, I think the simplicity story also shines there as well, because I can get data in and out of my database now without anything else. Like we used to have applications that quite literally their job was to move data in and out of a database. That is gone now, right? So think about that, and also the security model associated with it. Now the control is still within the realm of the DBA, not some other tool that might have access to move data between systems.
So this is good for DBAs,
yes,
in general,
so.
It is.
Right? I mean, it's empowering them to do more.
Well, yeah, and even
right?
the raw concept of just making the database smaller, right, is so undersold, because if I have to take a database that's 100 terabytes and I can move 90 of it out to object and just focus on the 10 highest value terabytes that represent the business right now, but I still have access to all the other data.
It's there.
Right, but just my job is so, HA is easier, DR is easier, backups are easier, indexing strategies are
all those
easier.
functions.
Right, I don't have to do advanced things like partitioning. Or I don't want to say that, I'd be more accurate. The partitioning becomes less of a tool that I have to lean on for performance, right? So those kind of things.
Yeah. And the next phase of this that's going to become really interesting.
Yeah, where are we going?
Is that now that we have all this data out in an object store, right? If this data was sitting in a database, you'd have the security and the governance model of the database arbitrating access to that data. Well, if that data is now somewhere else and there's a side channel to get to it, how do you keep it secure? How do you manage who gets access to it? And that's where developments like open table formats like Iceberg and Delta Lake, and as well as these catalogs, things like Polaris and Hive. Is that the other one? There's a couple other ones, but that space is rapidly evolving. I've talked to half a dozen customers in the last 6 months who are working on like Polaris deployments, and that is a piece of Apache Foundation incubation software. So it's early enough that it's still considered an incubation project. And there are people like deploying that in what would be super business critical analytics workloads, because it solves such a challenge for them around governance and catalog access and stuff. So that, I think, is going to be the next interesting evolution of this. Is like, now I've got the data in a different place than the database. So the database isn't the only vehicle to get to that. So how do I secure those other avenues, right?
Yeah, and I think that was the nexus of the feature, I guess, in Microsoft's data strategies. How do I blur the lines between the structured system and the unstructured world, where I can get the scale out analytics? I think Fabric, Databricks, those players kind of can go after those data sets that you described.
Yeah. It's a fun time.
Indeed.
Very interesting.
And you guys get to work together more.
Yeah.
Right? That's a big thumbs up. Closing, because we've got to wrap. I'm seeing your watch there, because I'm always watchless. What has you? I'll go you first, Anthony.
Okay.
What are you excited about right now? Think about one thing that you wake up in the morning, you're like, oh, I get to do this. I get to work with this.
I've been doing some pretty cool things with Claude
Yeah.
and writing a lot of code. Well,
Okay.
Claude and I have been collaborating
Yes.
on
It's a
writing
partnership.
code together.
Right.
Monsieur Claude.
And
Yeah.
I'll be blunt. I was a skeptic for a long time.
Okay.
But the things that I'm asking Claude to do, I'm not just letting it sit in a corner and bang out code. I'm describing declaratively the state of the thing I want it to build for me, right? And I give it guardrails, I give it instructions, I give it tests so to make sure that the things that it builds me passes the test that I needed to build.
Sure.
And I can build a pretty complex thing and skip right past syntax. Like I don't have to go learn Go or Python, and I can focus on the outcome that I'm trying to build. And this time that we're in right now, where we have this ability to create. Obviously, guardrails are needed, right? Production systems are real production systems, but this is something that has my gears turning in my brain on what's the software like development lifecycle going to look like as we go forward. Now, there's a whole bunch of things that have to be considered around security and intellectual property and all those goodies, but it's just as a creator, as an architect, to be able to do these things and break down the barrier of syntax is pretty amazing.
And speed up your ability to discover and find outcomes. And that's
100%.
actually, Rob and Ian in the hallway, it's basically the episode we just recorded.
Yeah.
Right, is what you're describing right there with what you're doing with Claude with coding.
Yeah, but there's things that I've wanted to have Microsoft build or have us do that I can just sit in the corner and build this thing. And that is incredibly empowering.
That's super exciting as a technologist. What about you? What are you excited about right now?
I'm going to go in a totally different direction.
That's okay. It's a podcast. That's what we do.
And it's all about tangents.
Yeah.
Cosine.
No trig, please. No trig.
So bad.
I did not do well in trig. So we putting this in a point in time, right? We are right in the midst of this, absolutely unprecedented supply chain crisis, but I see it as a really cool opportunity.
Yes.
So the thing that I'm super excited about, as you know, Rob, I love talking about the bits and the bytes and all of the low level stuff that we do. And now there has never been a more relevant time for our story around efficiency and predictability than right now.
Yeah.
The things that we can do, and if anyone wants to know more, I'm not going to spend 20 minutes going over the better science thing again, but the things that we do with our platforms have, not necessarily because we thought this was going to happen, but because we were focused on the right things from the beginning, have set us up in a way where we can go to a customer and we can say, I can get you the most performance and the most capacity out of those precious NAND chips that are in short supply.
Also in the smallest space with the lowest power footprint.
Right.
And by the way, do you want to subscribe to it instead of taking the risk?
Do you want predictability
Do you
in
want
how
to
you
align
consume
it to an
it?
SLA?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah,
and so,
exactly.
And so, right, they say crisis and opportunity. I forget what the idiom is, but they're the same
there
word
was
or whatever.
There was a meeting today where somebody brought up the, never spoil a good crisis or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
And we're not ambulance chasing, but we're actually taking the story that we have and saying, this is our story. This has been our story for over 15 years. If you think the story is interesting to you, we can help you address your current crisis around getting access to chips or getting access to infrastructure, and here are the outcomes we think we can help you to achieve. And by the way, it's not you're going to get the fastest storage on the planet. That will go with it.
Yep.
Right. Come for the performance, stay for the simplicity. Right. That whole line. Mr. Miller always likes to paraphrase that one from Cause, but it is an exciting time, and I'd love to see that we're being transparent with our position as well publicly. Charlie's letter went out
this morning
today publicly this morning. We'll publish this later, but that's an example of the transparency that we have where we're saying, we understand your situation. Here's how we think we can help. And here's the position we're in relative to this.
And I posted about this on LinkedIn. I read the letter and I'm enormously proud of our leadership. I'm enormously proud of the company that we are. I posted about this, but I said that, I think one of the reasons I love working here, been here for 6 years, don't have any aspirations of going anywhere else, is that we are truly thinking about our customers first. And so rather than look at this as an opportunity on how we can exploit our customers, or how we can, again, ambulance chase or exploit this opportunity, right? We're trying to think about how can we help our customers? How can we solve problems for customers? Whether there are customers today or whether they could become our customers, the idea is that the first thing that we think about when we're trying to solve these problems is, how is this going to affect a customer?
Yeah.
And how can we make this easier on them? The fact that everybody in this company has that same North Star is truly special.
So I tell a quick story. When I first got hired, I was going through training, and I saw kind of the whole evergreen model. And the thought that popped in my head was, this company treats its customers like people.
Yeah.
Right. And then I had that same exact feeling this morning when I read the letter from Charlie. I'm like, and I sent it out to, I sent a link to the post to a group of other technologists, and I was proud to say, like, this is what where our company stands right now. And I put the same thing in the chat. I'm like, our company treats our customers like people.
Yeah. We actually have rejected marketing messaging in the past that I've been part of discussions because it didn't have enough of a human connection. Right. Go back and figure out how you can actually connect with the person that is managing the infrastructure there, and what will personally.
And you've told the story 100 times about one of the most meaningful things that happened to you was when
the DBA guy.
Someone came up to you and said, I get to see my family again.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you for listening.
Yeah.
And watching. No, but it's powerful. I can't not tell that anecdote so many times because it's etched into my brain, and that was 2018. I mean, that was 8 years ago, and it still is of the forefront.
Because it's connecting with people.
Yeah, it's a people thing, which is great. Gents, fun.
Love it.
We pulled it off.
Yes.
I think there's more we can double click on, but we can save that because I feel like we're going somewhere
is that when you
with this.
Press the little floppy icon, save that.
Well, it's the file, and so we get into file structures, and if you're under the age of 20, you have no idea what we're talking
That's
about.
the save icon. It's the save icon. I don't know what it looks like, but it's the save icon.
Save. Well, is it a 3.5 or is it a 5 1/4?
Which one? They do 3.5 these days.
Gosh,
yeah.
I remember booting DOS on a floppy.
That's the second time DOS has been brought up today.
Great time.
Yeah.
And this is why we both remember this stuff, and why both of our hair is not as red as it used to be.
No, mine's was never red, but it's certainly less brown. But yeah, in my first job out of college, working for a interactive sports television company, if you were one of the writers for covering a game, you had to prepare all these DOS commands to fire stuff onto the screen when people were watching. It's crazy. I'll tell you about it.
And as a way to end it, it is now safe to turn off your computer.
Yes, that's right. But there's no button. Oh, no, sorry, different thing. Gents, good time. We pulled it off. I'm gonna save you from I'm gonna bring you back, and we got to do hot takes because I want to see, like, in your career when you did an oops, because those are always fun, and I already covered it with you. Another time. Super fun. Thrilled you were in town. Thanks for navigating through that. We will put in the show notes some of your GitHub, some of your code things. Would be really cool. I'd love to share some of the stuff that you've been doing in object land as well, file land. Yeah, super exciting. These gents are available for you all to talk to as well, right? That's the greatest thing with the specialist teams that we have working globally, is they would love nothing more to come in and have a similar conversation to this. And you didn't hear us talk about storage.
Not much.
All that much, right? We talked about the issues and the challenges that you're having up and above storage and managing data. And that's what's really cool and what is unique about what we do here. So I want to thank Anthony. I want to thank Justin for coming back. Thanks for making time. We carved it up today, and it was super fun. Let's do it again soon. Thank you out there for checking out this episode of the Pure Report podcast. As always, tell a friend, tell a colleague, and we will keep the great guests like Anthony and Justin coming on to the program. And with that, we will wrap for Everpure, for Anthony Nocentino, for Justin Emerson. This is Rob Ludeman saying, don't look back. Something might be gaining on you.